Welcome to my channel, ketomealsandrecipes.com. Today I will be showing you how I make my simplified keto triple berry cream truffle, which was inspired by Mary Berry, a lovely British food writer and TV chef. In my version, I have taken the basic parts of a trifle and changed things a little bit, in which I create a very fresh lemony sponge cake base, followed by a luxurious creamy layer, and a generous serving of blackberries, raspberries, and strawberries. This delicious, healthy, sugar-free, and very wholesome trifle is a perfect spring or summer dessert you can serve with pride at any special occasion like a picnic, family gathering, 4th of July, Canada Day, or your favorite national holiday. Because it has an amazing macronutrient ratio of 4:1 with 7.7 grams of total carbs, 2.5 grams of soluble fiber, 0.5 grams of insoluble fiber, resulting in only 4.7 grams of net carbs per serving. As I've already mentioned, the base of this trifle is made with my keto lemon sponge cake, and here's the recipe. Begin by getting your eggs and separating the whites and the yolks into 2 separate bowls. Then get your 9 by 12 inch sheet pan or 23 by 33 sheet pan, line it with parchment paper, and grease the surface of the parchment. Having done that, set it aside. Also, preheat your oven to 300 degrees Fahrenheit or 150 degrees Celsius. Now, I'm going to place a fine mesh sieve over a large mixing bowl and add all of my dry ingredients: the almond flour, the coconut flour, finely ground confectioner sweetener, gluten-free baking powder, and finely ground salt. Then just whisk to sift and aerate the ingredients. Once you've done that, set the bowl of dry ingredients aside for a moment. The next thing to do is to get your bowl with the egg yolks. Whisk them lightly to break up the yolks, then drop the additional finely ground confectioner sweetener and whisk to combine. And when you're doing that, do stop and scrape the sides of the bowl so that you get all the powdered sweetener into the egg yolks. Now, pour in the avocado oil, unsweetened plain or vanilla almond milk, the lemon extract, and freshly squeezed lemon juice. Even though I'm using fresh lemon juice, I still want to add a little bit of lemon extract to give this sponge cake a bit more of a lemony taste. Then just whisk everything to combine. At this point, you just drop in the sifted dry ingredients and whip to combine. And again, remember, stop and scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl to make sure that all the ingredients are getting well integrated into the batter. Whip again and then set the bowl aside. Now get the bowl with the egg whites, to which you add a little drop of lemon juice, and whip at high speed to stiff peak stage. Then transfer 1/4 of the whipped egg whites into the bowl with the egg yolk mixture. Whisk vigorously. This will help to loosen the batter, make it much easier to integrate the rest of the egg whites, which you add at this point. Add the rest of the egg whites and fold gently. You want everything to combine nicely, but you do not want to deflate the batter. Once your egg whites are nicely mixed into the batter, pour the batter onto your parchment-lined baking sheet. Then tilt the pan to distribute the batter evenly and make sure it gets into the corners. Then gently tap or drop the sheet pan onto your counter to get rid of the large air bubbles. It's now time to bake, so place the sheet pan into the middle position of your preheated oven and set the timer for 30 minutes. Because different oven baking times may vary, check after 30 minutes by inserting a toothpick. If it comes out clean, it's done. If not, give it another 5 minutes. The sponge cake should be quite fluffy, and if you press down gently, you'll see an indentation, but it should spring back fully. And that's how you can test to make sure your sponge cake is done perfectly. Take your sheet pan cake out of the oven and let the cake rest in the pan for 10 to 15 minutes. Then use the parchment, lifting it out of the pan, transferring it to a cutting board, and peel back the side parchment. It's really important that you set your cake aside and let it cool completely to room temperature. When the cake is cooled, cut it into 1 inch or 2.5 centimeter squares, like this. Set these squares aside while you make the stabilized cream, which is very easy to make. Pour your cool tap water into a small bowl, sprinkle in the powdered gelatin, begin stirring immediately, and continue stirring until the gelatin has completely dissolved. In order to bloom, just let the gelatin stand for 10 minutes. Then, just before you're going to use the gelatin, melt it over low heat and let it cool to room temperature. Next, pour the whipping cream into your large mixing bowl and whip just to the light peak stage. Then, while continuing to whip, slowly drizzle in the melted room temperature gelatin and try to get it into the center, and then continue whipping until your cream has reached the medium stiff stage and set it aside. Actually, at which point, cover your bowl and refrigerate until it will be needed for assembly. The last thing I'm going to do is prepare my berries. I begin by choosing and reserving some of the larger blueberries and some of the raspberries. Because I'll be using them for garnish, I also choose about 6 to 8 medium-sized whole strawberries. Then I cut each of these strawberries in half, trying to partition the stem so that each half has some, and set that aside. With the rest of the strawberries, I remove the green part and dice them into nice large chunks and set that aside. Traditionally, a trifle is assembled in a deep glass bowl specifically created for making trifles. However, I don't have one. Instead, I'm going to be using an oversized measuring cup because I don't have a trifle bowl. And that's okay. For the first layer, begin by placing about half of the cake cubes on the bottom of the bowl. Spread them out and sort of make sure that there aren't too many gaps. For the next layer, I spread half of the chilled stabilized cream over the cake cubes. And I also level the surface of the cream. Do this layering and leveling because you want each of the layers to be seen very nicely through the clear glass of your bowl. The next thing I'm going to do is spread almost all of my cubed strawberries, some of the raspberries, and lastly most of my blackberries, but you could substitute with blueberries if you prefer. Because we want a really nice presentation for this trifle, when you're adding the berries, bring the berries to the edge of the bowl so that they will be visible through the glass. Now place the rest of the cake cubes on top of the berries. Spread the rest of the cream on top of the cake cubes. Although you do want to level the cream on top, do leave it a little bit wavy. And the last layer is the garnish, and this is how I like to do it. You can do it whatever way you like. Be creative. For my trifle, I begin by positioning the rest of my cubed strawberries in the center of the cream. Having done that, I place the remaining raspberries on top of the cubed strawberries, and I also arrange the blackberries, placing some on top of the strawberries and raspberries, and the rest in a way that they surround strawberry pieces in an outer ring. I like this arrangement because I think it has just a bit more of a visual appeal. And lastly, I get my halved strawberries and overlap them with the cut side up to make a nice ring. You don't have to be this fussy when arranging your fruit on top, but I really like it because it has a visual appeal to me. And that's all there is. You have now created a much healthier, cleaner, and sugar-free version of a mixed berry trifle. As I said, I have omitted some of the steps like custard or syrup because I don't think it's needed, and I wanted to make it as healthy and simple as possible. And when you're ready to serve, use a wide serving spoon or slotted spoon. Insert it deeply, making sure you get a bit of all the layers of this trifle. Transfer to a plate or fancy glass serving dish. The presentation looks messy, but it's actually amazing because you've created this cacophony of all of these delicious portions of the dessert. You may think, why did I go to all that effort if it's just going to look like a mess? I agree, this does look like a bit of a mess, and that's exactly what it's supposed to be like. And the only thing that's left to do is to dig in and enjoy. By the way, leftovers must be covered and refrigerated immediately after serving. You don't want the cream to melt. Like many of our keto desserts and recipes, although this trifle is very tasty and can be served right away, if you make it the night before and let it rest in the refrigerator, the next day it is undescribably delicious because the fruit juices have blended with the whipped cream and the cake, and the taste is absolute heaven. So I hope you do give this recipe a try. I do love corresponding with everyone, so please leave me a comment and tell me what you think. And if you're going to be having any special events or family gatherings this summer. I would like to thank you for taking the time to watch my video. Your support means so very much to me. Please come back next Thursday morning when I post my next video. Until then, I hope you have a lovely and happy, healthy day. Cheers!